What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Jack Ramsays, Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague joining you now. And I just now realized, and I'm going to catch this. I'm going to hopefully catch this and make sure Brandon's audio is not jacked up before he says anything, because I'm a professional, because it's been so long since we've done anything. The meters were running, or meters were showing when we talked pre-show, but now I'm not getting any indications of anything. So what shall we do here? All right. Brandon, do me a favor. Say something here real quick.
We're back, motherfuckers.
Hey! All right. I love it. It literally flattened out, and it did not even pick up a drop of you in the room. And I'm like, oh, don't do this. Don't do this. They're all so sensitive. Don't act like this. What's going on, everybody? Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague. We are back. I would say better than ever. I guess technically I'm kind of better than ever.
Yeah, you gotta get you're surgically repaired, and it's been a few weeks, and
mostly better than ever.
You're moving around. You're not hurting as much as you once were.
That's debatable.
Yeah.
But again, thank you to everybody who has rode with us and continues to ride with us. We have a ton coming up. I will just say this now. We're going to talk about exit interviews and exit interviews only here, and we will do a season review here coming up in a couple days. Portland General Manager Joe Cronin will join the show here in the next few days. We are looking at locking him in, as will Damian Lillard in the coming weeks. We will have a ton coming up. To say it's the probably biggest crossroads in the last 20 years of the Blazers franchise.
Yeah.
Probably true. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. Help us get back on track as we are giving you and delivering content to you all throughout the off season. Brandon, how you been, man?
I've been good. I largely have been avoiding what's been going on in Portland in terms of the roster and stuff, because
have you been gambling on it at all?
I gambled against it quite a bit. I won. I'm in the plus territory, but what game? Oh, the Minnesota game really screwed me. That one, that wasn't fun. And they were close in a few of these other contests. Ultimately, were able to pull the plug in the tank. San Antonio game scared the living hell out of me, but I've been doing okay. I've been doing all right.
You weren't touching any spreads, were you?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I mean, I was in the beginning of the tank. I was taking the favorites.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not gambling on Portland. What are we, crazy
here? I just want to make sure. Look, if you're touching spreads on tanking teams, I was going to have an intervention for you.
I had people tweeting me. They were like, how dare this team? I bet them plus the 9.5, and they just packed it in the last room. I'm like, yo, I'm not telling you I'm great at gambling, but like they're openly telling you they want to lose this basketball game. Don't gamble on them.
It's kind of how it goes, man.
Well, it's people need to learn a lesson the hard way.
All right. There's a lot. Somebody says you sound like you're in Bane. In my headset, you sound entirely fine.
I sound like I'm Bane. Let me double check, make sure my mic is my mic. Yeah, it says I'm using the mic I'm using, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's their thing, or hopefully it's not ours, because I don't want to sound like Bane.
No, they're saying it sounds like you're on your computer mic, but in my headset, you sound absolutely fine. So I'm
on the Zoom chat. It says I'm using my USB mic, which is the one I have right in front of me.
I would imagine that's probably YouTube, and hopefully it just corrects itself, because all my inputs are showing correct, and you're showing all the way through. We'll see what it goes. Oh, they're saying that you're good now. So there you go. Shout out YouTube.
All right. Well, in case you needed to know, I was born in it, molded by it.
There you go. So sorry guys, that's YouTube and live streaming sometimes. The crossover between the live shows as opposed to the pre-recorded. It happens. Speaking of live shows, we had a live show kind of as the Portland Trailblazers took on the Golden State Warriors and got soundly crushed. Beyond that, we will not talk a second about that game. What we will talk about is the exit interviews. What we did have, Damian Lillard Anfernee Simons, Jerami Grant, Jusuf Nurkic, and Shaedon Sharpe. Surprise, surprise, surprise. We worked Shaedon in there. That's what happens when you ball your ass off down the final, 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And then you had Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin taking on a lot of questions. Some stern, clear answers, I think, were given across the board from a lot of players, from everyone not named Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon still hates the media.
I don't think he hates the media.
He doesn't hate the media. He just hates doing it. It's very
not
funny.
His thing, yeah.
Aaron Fencer's asked him if what he would rather be doing, going to the dentist or having to do media stuff, and he chose the dentist. So he did it with a smile on his face. It is a running joke of getting Shaedon more media experience as we keep pushing this through the development of the young man, for sure.
I'm always surprised too. I'm always a little surprised. I know personality types are kind of the big driver there, but I'm surprised there's never people in certain camps and circles that look at somebody like him and say, "Hey, yo, if you're really good at this, even if you fake it, you
make more money.
Marketability and all of that is going through the roof."
Dame got it.
Dame got it right away.
Yeah.
Dame kind of naturally has it, but. Yeah. I'm always a little surprised that's not in somebody's ear.
Yeah, you're throwing money away at that point in time. But
yeah,
I digress. Some folks are pointing out that there was something to be taken from the Blazers-Warriors game, and that is that the Blazers fans booed Gary Payton every time he touched the ball. Good job,
As
Portland.
They should.
Good job, Portland.
It's a bummer that they were in tanking position, because if that game mattered at all,
God,
it would have been really loud. There wouldn't have been as many Warrior fans at that game.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been nearly as cheap for them to get in the door. Let's dive into exit interviews. I'm going to try to pull these up one at a time, and we'll start with Damian Lillard. One of the first questions he was asked was what he thought of the season. And his answer was, I shouldn't say one of the first questions he was asked is his thoughts on the season. Dame said it was underwhelming and frustrating, never being fully healthy, never being able to put a consistent stretch together, not even really moments of consistency. He went on to say that I don't think we were able to find that winning spirit again that we lost early on when they started 10-4. And he mentioned that once they got going, then he picked up the calf injury, then Ant got dinged up, then Dame came back, and it wasn't quite right. Justice was dinged up a little bit, and then Dame came back for a couple of games, and then he got banged up a little bit, and then he sat out, and Nurk picked up a knock, and then Justice picked up the knock in December that shut him down for the season. Long story short, the Blazers actually started out relatively okay, and then they ran into a stretch where they played 10 road games in 25 nights. And that, to me, was the stretch that kind of did them in. And you can say what you want to about Chauncey if you want to blame him for some of the close losses. That's fine. I don't care. But I think they would have been, if they had finished this season, not tanked it, if they had finished the season with remotely healthy, they probably win 40, 41 games. They ultimately. Do you think that's crazy?
I don't think it's crazy. It was fascinating watching them the last couple of weeks when I did, because it was but I'm being honest here. But that was a team that somehow against the Clippers, for example, yesterday, that kind of pushed the Clippers a little bit. And this is a team that again is trying to lose their games. It just felt like they were a bunch of fighters at the end here, even when they were trying to lose with that makeshift group. I think one of the bigger things aside from the health is their road schedule. Again, I'm not trying to lay out excuses here. You are who you are. You mentioned the road schedule. They had a weird start road-wise to their season. It was a lot of road games. They played a lot of road games to start in the first half of the season here. So you add that with injuries, and it's going to be it's going to be really hard to find that consistency and that kind of chemistry. They started 10-4. They won a lot of games by one possession or at the buzzer or, whatever. Those tend to go the other way. But, if you don't stay healthy and you're not playing together as much as you could, plus you're traveling a lot, it tends to kind of rear its ugly head a little bit there.
Yeah, ultimately, again, this isn't to a narrative of the season or anything like that, but I think the fact that they end up the season losing the way that they did, where they lost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 of the final 17.
Yeah. Wow.
15 of their final 17 games.
I think unless you're a Pistons or a Rockets, if you're somewhere in the middle there, and obviously before the year started, and I think even midway through, we would put Portland smack dab in the middle. I think the reality is it's never just as simple as saying, well, they weren't good. Look at their record. Like, there's always a little bit of a story to the season and how it went and why it went and when it went. And, you want to, I know they finished with the 5th worst. Clearly, we know what was going on there at the very end. But unless you're coming into it Hornets, Rockets, Pistons-esque, I never think it's as simple as saying, well, they didn't win games, so they just sucked. It's like, well, but there's a little more to an 82-game season.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think they probably would have finished right around 41 wins. And to be honest, I think that was the expectation for the season. But the organization decided to pivot when things were very clear that they were going to be a at or near play-in team. And that really wasn't worth anything, particularly when they looked around and saw that they didn't have the depth, and they got Dame on board with gathering one more asset. And that's ultimately where they end up. And that's where this next note, I want to kind of get through these, and then I want to get your whole takeaway from like this chunk of what Dame talked about. And he went on to say, I feel how I feel about Chauncey, Joe, the optimism is there, but it's time to get the work done. Okay. Then he was asked about the general idea of how they got Jerami Grant, how basically it was a done deal. I mean, if you listen to the show here, you knew it was a done deal in February. He said, I know there are guys who want to do it, come to Portland. That move the needle. But knowing that and being able to put something together to make it work isn't guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Okay. When you hear Damian Lillard say, first of all, like, I feel how I feel about Chauncey and Joe. Like, I respect them. I have optimism. Like, but also the sins of the father, i.e. Neil Olshey, are gonna be cast upon the sins of the son, or the sins of the father will be paid for by the son, which is, that's Joe and Chauncey in this case. Mm-hmm. And Dame's saying, time shit or get off the pot, man. Mm-hmm. For one way or the other. But when he says no, there's guys out there like and to be clear, Dame's not bullshitting. I know of 2 guys that absolutely unequivocally would want to come to Portland. It's just a matter of, can they put together a deal that makes sense for the other team and that makes sense for Portland. And they are both needle movers. You know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And those guys would fundamentally change this team. Now, whether or not they can make that happen, I don't know. And it's not just those 2. There's just 2 that I know for certain.
Sure.
When you hear that from Damian Lillard, what makes you what do you it's great. What do you think about that?
I mean, I like it. I think the one thing we've seen, and if we can talk to Dame in a couple of weeks, I think this is an interesting part of the conversation. It's just like, it feels like for most of his career, he was just kind of this laid back, I do what I do, and I am who I am, team guy, leader. And whenever like somebody would approach him about roster construction or, hey, do you push things a certain way? He always would like step back, like, nope, that's not my job. I'm friends with these guys. I don't want to be this guy or that guy. And I'm not saying he's changed, but it does kind of feel like the last 2 seasons, and I can't blame him because of how bad the years have gone. Yeah. Feel like he understands father time and, another season where they're not contending, they're not competing, and you know what? Screw it. I am who I am. I got a profile in this league, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm an all-NBA dude. He should be all-NBA. It's disrespectful that these cats nationally are questioning if he should even be considered. It's ridiculous. But I think he understands that, and it feels like he's taken a different approach to the entire thing. I'm not saying he's openly naming guys and saying trade him, but I think when he talks like this, it becomes clear what kind of the message is. I don't think this is also a shot, by the way, for anybody out there that views it a shot towards Joe and Chauncey. I bet this is conversation they've already had. Like, you don't think Joe knows already going into this game or a couple games ago that the MO from Dame is, let's go to work, get this done now?
Look, he sat down and had that discussion, like, yes, not with Dame, but like with his management team. Like, he's talking to Mike Schmitz and Sergey and Andre and going, look, we know what we have to do. And I should say to Asha and Cherie, like that staff, like they're sitting down and talking about this. Look, we have exit interviews coming up, or Dame's going to be doing media stuff. Like he's going to put pressure on us,
as he should. That's the business,
Yes.
man. That's how sports works here. Like, and I think the other thing is Joe doesn't want to be in this position. I'm assuming this stuff, but like a general manager doesn't want to be in a position where his team's bad back-to-back years and people are questioning what's going to happen. But also, is this not the time when a general manager gets to roll up the sleeves and go, now I can try to mold this how I see fit for next year to take this a step further? And so, I just think this is all internally already known, and it feels like it's a different approach for Dame in a certain regard.
Yeah, for sure. And then I've seen some people, guys, read all the tweets. Read all the tweets. If you can't,
no, I'm going to take your tweet out of context and then just question everything because of one tweet.
I saw somebody say, like, I saw the Dame quote about him not, being, on board with 19-year-olds. And what about Shaedon? Okay, this is the quote from Damian Lillard. I don't have much of an appetite for building and waiting for guys that are 2 to 3 years away. I feel like Shaedon has been different. Okay? But that's enough 19-year-olds. It's not a secret. I want a chance to go for it. If the route is to do that, that's not my route. Okay? What you heard was 19-year-olds went, Shaedon! Dame has seen what Shaedon has done like everybody else has for the past 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would venture a guess that even Dame's opinion of Shaedon has improved. Like, because talking to people around the team, everybody expected Shaedon to be expects him to be a good player, a great player. But everybody's path is different. Usually you take some steps forward, you take some steps back, you take some steps forward, you take some steps back. Sometimes you fall on your face hard, and then you shoot up, right? Like what Shaedon has basically done is just been like, and ramped up. He scaled up. He did the same thing Ant did last year, where like just you gave him more, and he scaled up, and he kept the efficiency. And it's like, oh. And then he did stuff that he, like Ant, again, last year. People are like, he's not a playmaker. He can't create. Well, Shaedon has shown he can't really handle or get to the rim. Now he's getting to the rim, finishing and ones. He has drives where he finishes without his insane dunks that he had won the other night against the Clippers, where he drove, blew by Kawhi, stepped through, got into Zubac's chest, and finished at the rim on the other side. And I was like,
yep.
Oh, that's different. And so when you start seeing that, you're like, well, that doesn't look 2 to 3 years away. He's not a finished product. He's not done.
Right.
Could he be a starter? He got the endorsement of both Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups today. Shaedon Sharpe.
I thought that was big, by the way. Like,
Yes.
I know we're going to get to a lot of things. That was one of my biggest takeaways of all of the quotes. And I'm by the way, hallelujah, because I've been thinking this the entire time. I know he's young. I know it's not easy. But, man, what he did in 6 weeks and just kind of taking it and saying, no, I can do it. And them going, yeah, you're right. You can do this. Especially if you got certain guys out there that are veteran enough. He's not going to be asked to be carrying a whole lot. He just needs to do what he's doing.
But he can scale up when needed. So, but what I take this as, and again, I have surveyed, I want to say about a dozen GMs now. To a man. Not a single one of them is even considering trading the number 1 overall pick. Not even close. 2, 3 have said that they would pick up the phone for Giannis.
Right. And Milwaukee, I don't know why Milwaukee would be doing this.
But I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of value that Wemby is. And like I said, we will have Dame on the show in a couple, probably about a week, 2 weeks. That's one of the things I will ask Dame. Is like, when he said this, does this exclude Victor? Because I think there's a difference between 19-year-olds, like Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I think you would agree that there's a dividing line between those two, right?
Yeah, 1.73 handles and shoots, and he's been playing
7'5"
internationally and in the G League, and he's a 5. Like, yeah, there's a big difference. I love Scoot. I think he's great. I think Brandon Miller could be really good. But they need to be in bad situations, get the ball a lot, you know what I mean, into the season, Shaedon type stuff. Whereas Victor is like, I mean, the guy can follow up a 3-point miss with a dunk. You just don't see that from anybody ever in the league. So, yeah, I think it's him. Okay, I'm in. And then, like, hey, figure this out. You know what I mean? Like, I just, it has to be a difference there.
That kind of line of answers from Dame felt like it was the most firm, make something happen without a demand from Dame publicly in his career. Do you think that's accurate?
1,000%, and I'll one up it. I'll add to it. I would imagine privately it was even more intense. Yeah. With a respect.
Yeah,
respect.
You
know, like, hey, I like what you guys did with Jerami and getting him here, and you know, Tease is a nice piece to have here, and Shaedon's obviously was a good pick. What is he gonna be? 33? I'm gonna be 33. Like, let's go.
It's almost like you're a professional, Brandon, because Damian Lillard was asked about the positives from this season, and one of the things he said is, I think we know who we are and what we have. I know that I'm at the top of my game. There's no questions about whether I'm healthy or not, and it's time to push forward. Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah, I'm about that life. I just had a career year. We don't need to worry about whether or not the wheels are going to fall off. I'm good.
Yeah, I got the surgery. I checked out pretty well this year. Yeah, we're good.
This will be a trend. Another question that every player that was asked, that was interviewed, what their thoughts were on Chauncey Billups. And Damian Lillard said, I think as a coach, I think he demands a lot. He's a player's coach, and I think he's sharp. He prepares the team. The things I see in him, I think we can win with. And he went on and expanded a couple of different things about him. Every player wants Chauncey back. Every player went out of their way to praise Chauncey. So for those that are on the other side of that, well, sorry. that's you're gonna have Chauncey Billups back as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'll fully admit, like, I'm not pretending to be Mr. X's and O's guy. I'm definitely not that person. Mm-hmm. But I can't pinpoint a whole lot of great things if you were to take the relationships away. But with that being said, I mean, the reality is last year that team shouldn't have been together.
No.
And then it was obviously blew up in their face. And then this year, you know, things just didn't go well. That whole we're not really a made win now roster came to fruition. Injuries were added to it, and it blew up again. And so it's like, I'm 2 years in. You can feel however you feel. You don't actually have a definitive answer.
There's not much there.
No, because nobody was winning by game 48, 49, 50. Nobody was winning with that team at a high enough level for you to go, oh, man, I don't know. The way the West is now, like, that team at best was a play-in team who may or may not get out of the play-in tournament. So I don't know. I think you kind of have to give them another year, just especially if you bolster the roster. All right, now you got a good team. Let's see what it is.
The final question that Dame was asked was about one Jerami Grant. And I believe the general question was, do you expect Jerami Grant to be back next year? And Dame answered very bluntly, I expect him to be back.
Mm-hmm. So does Jerami, by the way. I know you'll get to that. But.
Interestingly enough, Jerami had a rather precise number on whether and how he would be back. So, you have anything else to say about Dame?
Nope. Dame is Dame, and I think a couple of these quotes, I've already seen them on Twitter. I've checked my Instagram. I've already seen certain accounts. They're going to crop these quotes. And
they're taking the 19-year-old and they are running with it. I can already see the Clutch Points headline.
Well, it's not just the 19. I think it's like the whole, like, oh, you know, I don't really want to do this with 2 and 3 years build up. Like, I've already seen that quote circulated 1,000 times. They're going to do this tomorrow, by the way. If you listen to any of the national shows, if they bring up NBA storylines away from the playoff, his quote's going to be pulled and they're going to use it. And it's going to be Stephen A saying, I wish he played New York. And then we're going to be dealing with the same crap. So I think outside of that, no, I think Dame was abundantly clear with what he wants.
I already know what quotes are going to run on debate shows in the morning.
Yep.
Because I'm going to take them and I'm going to beat them up over the head with them tomorrow afternoon.
Well, yeah, you get all morning to see what they say and be like, stupid.
I already started doing that today with a few quote tweets. I'm like, yeah, apparently the reading comprehension is not happening here. Next up was Jusuf Nurkic. Nurk didn't ask a lot of questions, but I asked him how he was doing with basketball and mentally, being not playing.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years, being shut down after not playing for basically 18 months after his injury, and he said, some version of we all try to put stuff together, but both years we fell short, and basketball has kind of been a safe place for him, but the losing sucks. The injuries are harder than the basketball stuff. Having to go through the motions, it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Nurk kind of gets lost in this because he has been shut down both years.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I saw him play last.
He's the only one.
Yeah.
So, don't get me wrong, he's getting paid. But it was like, oh, I'd love to get paid to do nothing. These guys only have a finite amount of time to play.
I think that's the same person that probably cried on senior night in high school because they weren't playing anymore. Like, I know they're getting paid, but you still want to play basketball.
You only have so many.
Not everybody's Ben Simmons.
Yeah. Listen, for one of every 100 guys that say that, there you go. That's how that works. Jusuf Nurkic was asked if he expected on being in Portland next year. His response was, I don't plan on leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Which was not a... I don't think that's a solid refute.
That's not a confident response, though. That's like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave here. If it's my choice, I'm here with Dame because I love Dame. But that's I kind of took it more of like, yeah, I don't plan on leaving, but I also read it as I can't control the circumstances. So
he said, I have people saying this every year, family members who reach out to me, they're saying, you're going to be traded here, you're going to be traded there. But as long as Dame is here and we aspire to win, I think I'm a player on that team. As long as they want me here, I'm not going to ask for trades.
Yeah.
Because, this is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it as such, but it probably is bad. I think he's getting comfortable to the level of CJ McCollum. In that,
expand on that.
I feel like he feels protected because he's Dame's guy.
He's okay in that way. All right.
Yeah, and
sure. And he's basically. We've not us, us and a lot of other people. Like, how many years has it been running now where they're like, I think this is finally it. Well, I think this is when they trade him. Well, I think this is the year they don't.
That's what I mean.
Him.
Like,
it just keeps coming back.
Yeah, and it's like it's very clear that a change needs to happen. It needs to take place, but
sure.
And again, I don't think Dame is stopping him from getting traded, but I think there's a level of comfort there. Nurk then followed that up with, if they think they can get a better player than me, I don't know what they're waiting for.
The season's not over, big guy. Not for everybody, at least.
Interesting.
Also, we don't know where the draft lottery is going to end up.
It was very interesting, for sure. Nurk was also asked about Chauncey. He said, I think he's grown a lot. I love Chauncey. I love being coached by him. My three-point shot has improved because of him. Overall, I think he brings a lot to the table. We didn't perform the way we wanted, but in bad situations, I think too much has fallen on the coach. Going out of his way for the coach again. Nurk was also asked about Shaedon Sharpe. Over the last month, I think Shaedon has grown a ton. He is seeing coverages and more mature stuff. Regardless of what happens, he has so many years in this league. Not exactly effusive in his praise, but he was basically like, he's pretty goddamn good.
It'd be really, it would be a little odd though. I think like Jason Kidd, when I think of this, but like I'm not saying Chauncey's not going to be a good coach. Mm-hmm. It is interesting that every player went out of their way to say something, and like, that's great, but it'd be a little odd if you were a former player and nobody vouched for you. Especially a player that all of these dudes were teenagers or children watching him play on television.
The Jason Kidd part of that is very poignant in that.
But that's what I'm saying is like Jason Kidd doesn't operate that way. Jason Kidd's very, fuck you, do this, I have an expectation. Whereas like, I think most former players, it's like Tyronn Lue. It's a great coach, but Tyronn Lue can relate to guys and he can use that expertise of playing to get people to like him.
So they're in an interesting spot. Was there anything, Nurk, that you wanted to kind of dive into any further?
No, that was just the quote about like, I plan on being here. And I the human side of me does feel a little bad when, these guys probably get calls or texts from family and friends randomly. Because, hey, I heard you're being traded. Yeah, but also, like, if you told me I got $70 million and that was what I had to deal with, I think I could handle it as a person, but I didn't really have much takeaway other than he doesn't control circumstance. So I know he wants to be here. It sucks he can't play both these seasons at the end, but there's only so long you're going to be with a team.
For sure. So that's Damian Nurk. On to Mr. Fashionable himself and the Maurice Lucas Award recipient. One Jerami Grant. It's a well-dressed, handsome man. Was asked point blank, did he expect to be back in Portland? Jerami responded, I definitely like it here. Looking forward to the talk, but definitely. I definitely feel comfortable. A lot of definitelys in there. Definitely. Over and over again. But when asked about why, he pointed to it's a family thing. It's about who you want to be around for the next 5 years. Weird. Hey, Brandon, what's the only team in the league that can offer Jerami Grant a 5-year deal?
So he's not signing a 2-year deal. I think we know that.
Yep.
Can I ask you this?
Go ahead.
So he basically duck hunted his free agency today. This team. Just shot them all out of the sky. I view this one of two ways. I don't. Where would you lean here? Would you lean?
I would lean towards 5 years, $150 million.
Okay, but would you lean? He kind of hurt himself for negotiations, or do you
No.
think he basically told the teams, "Don't try it"?
No,
it's a waste of your time.
I think a deal's already done.
I mean, I tend to believe that as well, but it's just an interesting approach for a guy that's entering free agency and is going to get paid.
I would imagine that $150, $30 million a year for Jerami Grant is basically done.
What's the number that makes you go a little?
When you start getting to 35.
Okay, yeah.
When you start getting to $35 million a year. But again, with the way the cap is going with the new TV deal and the way that money is being smoothed out, the cap is being smoothed out. There's no reason why paying Jerami Grant $30 million a year is a lot like paying somebody $18 to $20 million a year right now. It's just not. It's not that crazy. Like percentage wise, when we know what that's going to look like, I will sit down and I will show the percentages, and I bet you it's not going to be that far apart from his old deal to his new deal.
Oh yeah, I mean I've been saying this for years. This is still we're a lot of us of our age.
We're still used to $7 million a year guy. Yeah,
we're still the Joe Johnson thing. Like it's like what, and you're like that's a long time ago.
Now that's like double the MLE money. It's
right.
Super weird. I asked Jerami about as far as just how he felt the season went for him. It was one of his more efficient years. He said, I definitely had fun. It's been one of my more efficient years individually. It's been good for me for my growth, playing with Dame and Nurk. It was good for me. And then I was asked about what he thought went wrong in the season. He says, I think we were injured, but at the same time, there are a lot of variations that went into losing. But if we knew all the answers, we'd know how to fix it, and we didn't. So, that's Jerami kind of in a nutshell. He's I don't want to say like I don't think he's avoiding anything. He's just very non-combative in the sense of like, look, man, it is what it is. Like it's behind us. We got to look kind of. There's a very it's kind of funny.
Zen.
There's a Zen kind of like hippie-ish vibe to Jerami.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, hey man, look, what's in the past is in the past. You just gotta move forward, you know.
Well, also like some guys will talk about it, but like other guys, it's like, what am I gonna get from dwelling on what's already done? I can sit here and tell you, we missed X amount of games at the same time, and this guy came back, and then the other guy, was hurt. What is it? You're just gonna paint me out to look like an excuse maker. And it's also not going to change the circumstance that we're the 5th worst team in the league. Like, it is what it is.
Jerami followed that up with, basically he was asked some version of, does he think, or does the moves around the Trailblazers influence what he wants to do? And he said, I think we're showing we're moving in the right direction, which is putting pieces in the right places. It's going to be an eventful offseason for sure.
There's another. So that's 3 players you've gone through, and all 3 have had different renditions of one guy saying, hey, let's do something, and let's do something now.
And there are guys who want to come here who are needle movers.
There's another guy basically saying, "Oh, I'd like to be here," but also saying, "I don't know if I will." And now you've got a third guy saying, "Feels like there's going to be some stuff happening this year." So.
Jeremy was asked whether or not he's in the discussions, and he said, "I think they're capable of doing it without me, but maybe they could come talk to me about stuff." Again, this is Jeremy being very zen and like,
give me 150 and I don't give a shit.
Yeah, basically, like, we're good here. We're good here. Like, if you run some shit by me, sure. Cool. But like I'll be in the room.
Right.
But I'm calling in from Paris because Fashion Week is around Summer League and free agency. So
I wouldn't be shocked if somebody contacted him in Paris and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about what just happened?" He'd be like, "I don't know what just happened."
Yeah, I'm on the runway, dog. Like, don't you know I'm a well-dressed, handsome man? It's not what I do. But I respect that about Jeremy. He's like, nah, it's not my lane. I hoop and I dress well. After one Jeremy Grant, Anfernee Simons was up. And Ant was asked about what he thought was what happened this year, and bluntly asked what he thinks about his name being one of the more likely candidates to be moved. Because realistically, he is. If they're going to make a move, Ant's salary is probably a part of that. And Ant said, obviously we had a lot of struggles with injuries this year. Again, a lot of struggles with injuries. Like, they're telling you, all of the players are telling you they had injuries this year. Okay? We put a lot of pressure on the young guys, on them to play well. And that's a theme that we'll get to when we talk about Joe and Chauncey. The gap between the starters and the rotation guys, and who was the guys that were asked to carry slack that weren't ready for it, right? But he kind of talked about what the Blazers need. He goes, the league is going to a lot of switching in length. That's something that we're definitely going to look to add. And if that involves me, that's something I can't control. Like, this is the first time Ant's name has genuinely come up in movement and trade discussions. And he handled it about as well as I thought he could.
Well, I mean, one, he got his contract, right? That was a pretty big, that's a monster step for guys like him. And two, he's not an idiot. He's well aware of what's going on. He's well aware of the situation. He understands that his slot kind of makes a lot of sense in terms of these conversations. And oh, by the way, without naming specific names, there are certain players that if they decide that they want out from a good team, he could in turn be going to a good team. And it could be a great situation for him. So, the one thing I've always respected about him, and I know we've interviewed him. I know you talk to him all the time. He just seems like genuinely a pretty humble, guy that kind of views I am.
He gets it.
He understands it. It's a business. He thinks obviously the world of his ability and himself. But, if he were to go to Boston, I would actually be pretty excited for him. Obviously, we would know what's going back in that situation. But just as an example, I'd be excited for him, man. That'd be a great opportunity for him.
Regardless of what happens, if he's not here next year, I just hope he doesn't get sent to some hellhole.
And that's the thing about this organization is I don't think they actively try to do that to their guys.
They're going to try to get the best possible value, but I
understand that.
But I don't think they're not going to send him to Houston.
No.
No. It's just not where they go. So, but Ant was asked about the same general question about as Jeremy, in the sense of, assuming a leadership role. How do you feel about being brought in on meetings and being asked about certain moves and what could or shouldn't happen in the offseason? I'm sorry, we'll get to that in a second. He was first asked about whether or not him and Shaedon can coexist. And he said, personally, I think we can. I think it's up to the staff on how they want to play it. But we can coexist and come together. It's a collective unit. If your 3-guard rotation is Dame, Ant, and Shaedon, I think you're in a very good spot.
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously need certain holes to be plugged there. I think it's the right answer. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that's the right approach.
Joe Cronin, I believe he called it a good problem to have.
Yes,
and he's not wrong.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah. A good problem to have.
I asked Ant about what he learned from last year to this year and kind of what changed. And the version of it was, how to play on ball, how to play off ball, like how different this year was being a starter, like learning how to be a starter and how to like come with a level of aggressiveness and all the things that kind of come with that. But he said, knowing what I need to work on, I know exactly what I need to work on, playing off the ball and upping my playmaking. He finished that with saying it's going to be a really big summer for me, development wise. Like he's probably going to go. I think he told me he was going to go work with Darren Collison again, who was part of training him and getting him up to speed last year, and helping him make that leap and go work at P3 with those guys again. Which puts him in a position to be successsul. Like Ant knows what he's good at. He knows where his holes are and what he needs to do to get better. He was asked whether or not he's a point guard or a two guard, and Ant said, "I think I have the ability to play both. It's about having experience doing both, trying to figure out where he fits in that." And then he followed that up with kind of what's your point. If he went to another team, whether it's here or somewhere else, he said every basketball player has aspirations to be the man on the team. But if that's not my time, then it's not my time. I've got to complement the game the best I can in the meantime. Again, he gets it.
No, he definitely gets it. I actually, what I really like about that the most of everything you just cited was what he said he needs to work on. That would probably be my big takeaway this year. Mm-hmm. And again, I've said this 3-4 times at different points during the year. The way that him and Dame came together this year, it's not necessarily fair to him, but I think because of the Dame CJ thing and then insert Ant, it was like not a lot of leeway for fans that had been seeing what was going on for a decade. And so it was like, oh, well, if it's not this, then it can't work. I love that he's honest about off-ball stuff. That was kind of one of my takeaways was it just didn't, because of how he ended last year and Dame was out, that I didn't quite feel like they were so much in simpatico on that stuff, like him figuring out what he was off the ball was a little clunky.
And being a starter.
And being a starter too. I don't think it would be fair to our listeners though, Blazer fans out there, if I didn't ask this. I can't just let you whiz by here. I'll ask you. Ant, I think we can see Ant in the video screen here. And if we can't, people know that the picture's right there. You're an Ant guy. I'm genuinely curious, like, don't give me the numbers. I'm just genuinely asking, what did you think of the season versus like what you were expecting, hoping, whatever for this year with him?
He was almost exactly what I thought he would be.
Okay.
Almost exactly what I thought he would be.
Yeah.
22. I think I said coming into the season, if he gave us 24, like 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, I was like, that's a really good season. I think he ended up being like 22, like almost 5-3. The only thing for me that lagged was his 2-point shooting, where he started the season not driving, and it took about a month for him to like, oh yeah, no, I can drive on anybody. I can get to the rim whenever I want to, and he just like remember he wasn't really getting to the line. Then all of a sudden he started getting to the line and finishing at the rim and dunking and the scoop layups, the left hands, the step throughs, the euros. Like the confidence just started click 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 click. It's like there that is. Other than that, like, I talked to him a couple weeks before they shut him down. I was like, what the hell happened to your 3-ball? And he said something along the lines of, like, I'm finishing, like, mid-range pull-ups better than I'm finishing threes. Just like, I have no idea what's going on. It's like, it just, I mean, he's going to end up shooting, I think, 37.2% on dumb volume this year, which he's going to, for his career, he's going to be like a 39 or 41, like, well, let's say call it. He's going to be a 40% three-point shooter on insane volume. There's like 5 of those guys in the entire league. So he finished about where I expected him to. There were like things that I thought he's going to need to work on for sure. But let's use Boston as the example. If he went to Boston and Jalen came to Portland, he would put up obscene numbers.
Oh, he would be amazing for them with Marcus next to him.
Yeah,
oh my!
Run a lineup of Ant, Marcus, Tatum,
Robert Williams,
and Horford.
And Horford, yeah, that's
like the one thing that team is missing is that kind of shot creation.
Right.
Like they have a bunch of guys that hezzy tween and kind of weird. Ant's a shot creator of the highest level. So
yeah,
I'm very confident if he went to a team like that, he would be very good. Ant was asked about having, again, coming back to this, was about the idea of being involved in discussions and talks about how to shape this team going forward. And he said he laughed. Like, he was like, hey, honestly, man, at first it was weird. He's like, last year I was, or like you said, a couple years ago, I was just another guy. And now they're like, what guys do I think that we should target in the offseason? He kind of like ducked his head doing what I'm doing right now. It's, this whole idea of getting caught in that. And he goes, at first it was weird, then them asking who can help us. I feel like Joe or Dame has been around with no bets. It's crazy how things work for sure, but it's a process that I'm enjoying. And that's where, like, I've told people, I don't think it's a guarantee necessarily that Ant is out the door. Like, he's still being involved in some pretty high-level discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've asked people around the team talking about certain things, it's been caveated or very, very regularly as Dame and Ant, Dame and Ant, Dame and Ant, Dame and Ant. Not just Dame. Or not Dame and Shaedon, or not Dame and Grant. It's from everybody, up and down the organization. And I didn't find it strange. I just found it interesting.
Well, I think history would step in here and say that's probably the right approach. Now, no matter how people feel about hearing that, some people probably rolling their eyes. Some people going, "Are you kidding me? Like, who are we gonna trade if we're gonna make a big move?" Mm-hmm. I think what I learned from the CJ McCollum era is, I probably traded that dude 7 times. Never happened. Didn't happen until it literally had to happen. There was no other options for the franchise in terms of where they were in that moment. And so I think because of that, like, even though I think that's probably the move mentally, I'm also not going to put all my eggs in that basket and assume that's a done deal. And I think the CJ era taught me that of, you might think that's the move that needs to be made, and that's okay to have the opinion, but the assumption that that's going to happen. CJ McCollum line 2, please, because again, I traded him like 7 times in my mind after a disappointing playoff showing.
For me, they're not just going to give Ant away just to balance the roster.
No, I wouldn't believe that.
For those that are listening on the podcast version of this tomorrow, I did the air quotes there. They're not going to. The one thing Joe is not going to do is do things for the sake of balance.
Right.
They'll be imbalanced and keep the talent. That's just ultimately what it comes down to. Anything else on Ant?
No, I think we covered all of it.
Shaedon did media. We're not going to go through it.
Yeah, let's not go through all of that, please. His 5-word answers.
Shaedon was asked what he hates. What's more fun, going to the dentist or dealing with media, and he said the dentist. Shaedon has grown a ton this year, and he's actually grown a ton with media, the media experience stuff. I'll say it flat out. I think I've told this story before. When I was up in Seattle preseason, it was the first time Shaedon had ever done like media in the sense of like having guys in the locker room. He had never had media in the locker room. And it's pregame, and it was like, I still don't know him and Bari. Like, I don't know any of the young guys, so I'm just trying to strike up a conversation with them. Hey guys, how's it going? Kind of a deal. And Shaedon had like 4 pairs of Kobe's, like different colorways in front of him. Have you always been a Kobe guy? Have you always played or you've always hooped in Kobe's? Like, have you you try different shoes, or it's just kind of like you got into Kobe's and Kobe's your guy and that's who you play with? And he's like, he stops, looks at me like deer in headlights. And then he scrolls over and looks at Rasan, the VP of PR for the Blazers. And he's like, is this a on-the-record question? And Rasan and I bust up laughing. And he's like, no, man, he's just asking you a question about your shoes. Look,
he didn't even want to answer a shoe question because he wasn't sure.
Well, it was just Rasan laughed, but he's like, good for you, first of all, for like being on board, but also like, it ain't that serious.
Right.
So, like, getting Shaedon to be more comfortable, it took basically the entire season. To be able to sidle up to him and just like have a conversation. Just shoot the shit about things. Not that he's walled off. It's that he's slightly protective and just doesn't fully understand how media works, and he's getting there. But
he also let's also be a little fair to him. He might not have the personality for that right now, but
100%.
He also went through an entire calendar year where people were openly
killing him.
Yeah, like
in Kentucky.
All the media to him was
roasting him.
this dude is a bum who doesn't like competition, and he's afraid and he's scared and he's not a team guy. Like, that was the year of media he went through in Kentucky.
Yeah, they fried him, and unfairly. It's a kid. It's an 18-year-old kid. Calm down, Kentucky. But that's Shaedon.
He also made the right decision, by the way. He got drafted top 7 in the draft. He
didn't go to
changed.
Houston.
Yeah.
So, but that's Shaedon's media availability. Now on to Chauncey Billups. Players are all done. Chauncey was asked about this season and what he thought. And he said, "You know how I feel about losing, about this," and kind of gestured to the tanking in general. And he said, "I hope I'm never in this position again. We're going to do everything we can to assure we're not here again." So that is everyone so far, except for Shaedon Sharpe, telling you there are changes a coming.
Yep.
There are changes a coming. It's like, interesting. Let's see where this goes.
Chauncey, I mean, look, if you're Chauncey, you got to be at the point where you're like, yo, change this now or I'm out of here. Like, I can't keep doing this.
He was asked about the defense and why do you think that the defense didn't turn out the way that they had hoped? And he said, when you start having to play young guys, it's tough having to maintain it. When we had most of our guys, our defense was pretty good the first 15, 17 games. I believe the Blazers were 6th through like 24 games defensively.
Yeah, they kept
they're off. Well, their offense was good. Sucked.
Yeah, they kept switching spots.
But their defense was very good. It's what won them games for the first quarter of the season. And then he said, then things started to change with injuries. And then Chauncey was asked about, and this is again pertaining to the first part of this. He was asked about whether or not they can make a few changes and run it back, or like, do they need to have a big overhaul? I think we've done the tweak thing a few times. We got to be more aggressive than that. If we want to do right by the best player in the organization, I'm not sure if. I'm sorry. Then he went. There's another version of that question was like, a follow-up question was, can Shaedon and Simons coexist in that world? And he says, I'm not sure if they can both be here. Those decisions will be made by people higher in the organization than me. So he's, again, telling you, expect big changes.
Yeah, I actually really appreciated that quote because I feel exactly the same way.
What we got with under the Neil O'Shea era was a Taco Bell menu. The same 5 ingredients cut up and sold a different way every year. Where you got one bomb-ass ingredient. Damian Lillard pops off, baby. What is Damian Lillard? He's ground beef doing him too wrong. Is he the Taco Bell chicken? Taco Bell steak?
I think he's the tortilla. Taco Bell tortillas are almost always fire on anything. Quesadillas, the tacos,
chalupa.
You know what I mean? Chalupa, the double-decker, burritos. They always got consistent bomb-ass tortillas.
Soft, okay, you know what? Yes, there you go. Everybody else is the fillings. Dame is what brings it all together. There you go. See, there now we're working.
Yes.
Now we're working here.
Yes.
But that's what Neil O'Shea was a master at cutting up and reshaping the same shit.
Yeah. Over
and over. This is different. I swear. Look. I swear it's different. Chauncey's saying we're not doing that shit anymore. We're bailing on Taco Bell. We're gonna go to Sanchez's. Okay, we're gonna go get some real Mexican food. We're gonna bring in the real asada, and we're gonna go get that al pastor.
Yeah.
And we're gonna team it up with the bomb tortilla, which is hilarious because I have 2 tacos sitting next to me right now. That's why I'm making Mexican food references. Shout out the Warriors.
Light years ahead.
Light years, baby. But the idea of like, we're gonna tinker around the edges, and it's like, no, that's not working. And I love hearing that because I have been beating this drum for God knows how long. And we'll kind of tie this back into Joe Cronin and his media availability following all of this. This is what's just really interesting. This is something that Joe and Chauncey and Dame to an extent hit on as well. And Nurk mentioned the idea of veterans. Chauncey says if we're watching this game close enough, you're not going to see teams with young guys. And he's talking about teams that are winning teams. It doesn't happen. So with that being said, I get where Dame is coming from. He should feel that way, and he has a right to feel that way on the Blazers adding veterans. If you saw a couple weeks ago, I did a rundown of, I want to say 12 teams in the NBA, and I rated them based on weighted age, meaning the more you play, the more your age factors in. The Blazers were as young as the Cleveland Cavaliers, who the oldest starter in their starting lineup is 26.
Donovan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Blazers have a 32-year-old starter and two 28-year-old starters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a vastly different lineup. And yet, because the guys behind them are so young, and they played so many minutes, i.e. Shaedon Sharpe at 19, it brings the weighted age down a metric shit ton. The Blazers were a young team outside of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that as it pertains to decision making and in the moment and all those things. They are trying to raise all tides by having functional adults on the team. That doesn't mean they're going to get rid of every kid on the roster. They all got to go. But they're not going to count on them. So as nice as it would be to keep Cam Reddish, you can keep Cam, but he's got to be your 12th man, not your 8th. You can keep Kevin Knox or Jabari Walker. They've got to be your 13th and 14th guys.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be at the front end of your rotation. That's a big, big, big change.
Okay? Yeah.
So, and Chauncey kind of alluded to that here. He said, we depended on a lot of people this year who we had never seen play together. No, go ahead. You got something?
Oh, I want you to finish the quote. I'll add to it when you get this quote. This was a good quote too.
He said we depended on a lot of people this year who we had never seen play together. We did a good job putting together a team we thought would compete together, but we never saw that team play together. You need some great offensive players to move the ball, rebound, length, and guys like that compete. You could put all 30 coaches up here, and they'd all say the same thing. Have I done a good enough job of coaching that team? All I know is that the guys in that locker room love and know what I bring for them.
So I think it's not going to get nearly the attention. I think everybody's going to focus on Dame because it's Dame.
Yeah.
I actually thought Chauncey's quotes were more powerful than Dame's.
100%.
Dame feeling how he feels is like, yeah, dude, I feel even...
It's 11 years of that.
I'd be more heated if I was you. Like, you're actually handling this better than I would. Chauncey being the head coach, like, I like Terry. I was one of those, like, stop blaming everything on the coach guys. It was ridiculous. How many times did Terry come out and outwardly kind of criticize without being mean about it?
Oh, you mean like
Chauncey did with this?
To throw, like, Chauncey on his first week basically said, Neil fucked me.
Well, yeah. I mean, did Terry come out and go, hey,
we're the shortest team every night?
Yeah. Did he come out and be like, hey, you know how we projected 54 with a certain guy at the 4? That didn't happen this year, did it?
Yeah. Chauncey.
He's not a great 4 to have in your starting rotation.
100%.
Like, Chauncey's just like at a point, and I think this is the difference with the organization. Yeah. I think the coach, the star, and the general manager feel like they've already been in this room and they've shared this shit.
Yep.
And I would gamble a large wager with Joe that Chauncey saying these quotes, Joe wasn't somewhere going, my God, I can't believe he publicly said that.
Nope.
They all know what the deal is here. Yep. This is Dame time, right? And Chauncey has not had the greatest pieces and roster stuff to go show what he is as a coach. I know a lot of people are convinced he sucks. Maybe he does. I can't pretend to know, but I think the Chauncey quotes are even more eye-opening to me than the Dame quotes, because you have the head coach basically saying, we can't be young anymore, and we can't make tiny moves that we think are going to move the needle. We got to swing big, and this roster needs real overhaul.
Yeah, and Chauncey went on to say, "My guys know how I am and how I feel. They know I care about winning. I'm honest with them. Over the course of the year, they're probably upset with me about something, but they won't tell you I wasn't fair or honest with them. That's a big thing." I'm sorry, this is another quote. He says he was asked about the lack of size. That's a big thing. We lack size since I've been here. Again, highlighting the Norm starting at the 3 lineup. Remember when Chauncey rolled out Dame, CJ, Ant, Norm,
Yeah.
all in one lineup, and it was like, yeah.
And then like
He's post game. He said we don't have anybody bigger, so I figured screw it, just gonna lean into it.
Well, and then I know that the Denver series obviously cost Terry the job, and that was a really bad moment. But like the effed up thing was in the post-season exit interview. Remember, that was famously Neil going, "It wasn't the roster. It was like."
And Chauncey came in day one saying it was.
You think it was 3-6-3 guys in your starting 5 was the solution?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
So. But he said, we lack size since I've been here. I think it's something we'll do a better job of. We've had big heart from guys like Justice, but we lose the who can get there first. Like when he said basically he like threw the ball up in the air. Like you can have all the heart you want, but like based on size, we're not getting to that spot.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So that's the Chauncey quote tree. Is there anything in there from you that you're like, oh, okay, I got it, or any further elaboration you want to go to in there?
No, it's just the fact that the head coach feels empowered enough to come out and say this wasn't good enough. We're not good enough, and is there some responsibility that falls on him? Sure, yeah, it's sports. He's the coach. That's how that goes. But they came out of the gate and they said, general manager, Joe told us it's not a win now roster. Okay. Most of us in the media still picked the over in the win total. And it started out great. It changed how a lot of people felt, right? It was like, holy crap, maybe they're just going to play hard and this is a good nucleus. And then it came to earth a little bit. Some things went against them. Then injuries happened. Then you go on the road. Like it just, it hits the side of a mountain. I love that the coach is willing to do this. Mm-hmm. I love that he's willing to come out and say, this isn't what we need it to be. No. We have to be better than this. Because when he says that and the star says that, I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that's coincidental. I think there's a purpose here. And I know we'll talk to Joe, but Joe kind of echoed this at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. It's just like, this is about Dame. And it feels like they know, and I hope that, again, that they swing and they hit, but they know that this summer is going to be a lot of moving pieces and a lot of potential eye-opening things that could potentially happen for this franchise.
100%. We'll wrap up here. We're a little over an hour right now, so we'll kind of try to burn through this quick. But it's been a while, so we can go a little bit long because this is a big one. This is the exit interview wrap up. So I just want to say again, thank you to all of you. Appreciate you. We love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. If you're watching here on YouTube, either live or in the replay, please click subscribe. Help us get to 5,000 before we get into the off-season stuff. All right, on to Joe Cronin. He sat down and was like, hey, appreciate you guys. Thank you all for being here. Let's dive right into it. The goal is to get better as soon as possible. Timeline-wise, it's time to start having a roster ready to compete at the highest level. That is how Joe Cronin opened his media availability.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you open media availability, if I'm being honest. Joe's done this for 2 trade deadlines, 5 times I think now, since he had the impromptu one with him.
He had the intro. He had the intro. Yep. He had the trade.
Yep, and then the
summer, and then he had the trade, and then this is the 5th one.
So the 5th one.
Yeah,
I think he's gotten better each time. What's funny is I think Joe's biggest shortcoming has been this stuff. He's a CBA genius, understands the mechanism.
You talking about the media?
Yeah, I think it's the weak part.
Really?
Yeah. Because he's not a dirtbag salesman.
Oh, well, I wouldn't argue that. I'd actually argue it's just like, and this is where the prove it factor is. Like, I think it's just a matter of like, go make the big move. I just think he's great with the media. One, he makes himself available, which hasn't happened yet.
No, listen, I'm saying he's great for us 100%, but I don't think he's good at the prepared statement, question and answer stuff because I think he's probably a little too forthcoming.
What are you doing?
I love it.
You're supposed to talk to him, and you're like, stop being so honest. Like, what?
I love it. I love it. But like, as an organizational standpoint, like most GMs don't do this. They don't, which is why I love him. He's going to come on our podcast.
I know, and you're out here like, his problem, his weakness is he's just too honest to everybody.
He's too nice.
He needs to be more of a car salesman. Like, and then we get a car salesman answer, and we're like, hey, Sprague, why didn't you ask a better question? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe because my co-host told him in a different podcast to start being a bullshitter? I don't know.
So, yeah.
Damn it, man.
But no, I thought this was his best press conference yet.
My girlfriend's weakness is she wants to sleep with me too much. I don't know about what's going on there.
Are you dating Larsa Pippen? 4 times a night.
There's no way that's true, by the way.
No, that's not.
No chance.
But Joe opened up with saying, I think we knew that we liked some of the additions, but we weren't talented enough. If we can get out of this offseason with some key additions, 9-10 guys who can really play, then we're doing a good job. That was a question following, what do you want or what do you need to get done this offseason?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he was asked whether or not Simons and Sharpe can work going in the next season. And we talked about this a minute ago. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
2 hyper-talented, very young, high-end prospects. This is where it's like, yeah, it's a good problem to have to be able to figure that out. Where it can go from there, we'll see. Joe followed that up with, he was asked about Shaedon. He said this will be a big summer for him. His learning curve has been so quick that he can be ready to impact winning very soon. Which... you hooked him up to a lie detector, I bet you while he would say every player's different, they were not anticipating his impact being this much this soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you'd be right, but I would probably also tell you he wouldn't think that because I don't think he thought they'd get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he might have said, oh, yeah, we lose in the play-in? Okay. All things being considered, even if you say not a win now roster, like I don't think he thought we were going to be tanking. Well, he wouldn't even say that, but like I don't think he'd think they would be in this situation. So I think if you gave a caveat and Shaedon's going to play a ton of minutes by the end of the season, maybe his answer's a little different.
Look, without going into the specifics, Joe told me a number of what they thought or what he thought was a really good win total for them this season.
Yeah.
It was not a crazy number. And then he came out openly in public and said, look, we know the roster's incomplete.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is who can play with Dame. Remember back to October. Who can play with Dame? And everybody, like, I swear to God, that 10-4 start just got, everyone's brain just completely just fried. Like,
sure.
Playoffs! And it's like, it hasn't changed, guys.
Yeah.
What he was saying was like, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we're going to find out. And now they found out who can play with Dame. They know Jerami Grant, really good alongside Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard. Good Lord, my tongue just stopped working. Anfernee Simons can play alongside Damian Lillard. It's a perfect fit? No. Shaedon Sharpe, unsure if he can play alongside Damian Lillard, but
I disagree, actually. I was going to say Shaedon. I thought, I know they didn't have the most minutes, but when they started staggering, they were playing Dame with Shaedon. Now, you're going to probably look up the stats here.
I'm going to pull them right now. Yeah.
But I felt like when I saw them on the court together, because Shaedon understood, I'm the rookie, this is the dude's team, it felt like they actually were not bad together. Maybe I'm misremembering some games for the whole entirety, but
Dame saves a lot of lineup data. Like just
sure,
Dame and anyone makes lineup data go, oh, that's not that bad.
But if you tell
super
me,
easy.
If you told me the missing pieces are in place, or most of them are, and Shaedon's with him, I don't feel like, I don't think this can work. Like I actually feel.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm trying to think of. Okay, no, they're +4 net.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: their offensive rating was a 99th percentile, 126.4. Here's the flip side, and if you've heard me talk about Shaedon,
Oh,
They're in
don't
the
say it.
seventh percentile defensively.
Well, let's go get a defensive player of the year candidate, and we'll shore that right up, huh?
So yeah. Again, I'm not pushing back on what you said. I was just like,
No, I know.
I had to like think. I'm like, did they? Like, it's been 8 weeks since I've seen them on the floor together. So I was like,
I know. It's been a minute.
They though? But yeah, no. I don't know if they know that, but I think that the projection and the thought and the idea of it is probably better than it was. I think I can meet you there. Does that seem fair?
Yeah. Okay. It's enough for me to feel encouraged going into a second year, knowing if certain things change.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
I don't think this can work. Like, I feel like it can.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. Joe also came out and he Rudy Gobert himself, just punched himself right in the face. He said, our lack of depth cost us a lot of games. Flat out took responsibility. And this was following a question that I asked him, and it was a question about what he had said here on this show 10 months ago. Mm-hmm. It was about the recklessness of two timelines. And he said, our lack of depth cost us a lot of games. The recklessness came about in the young guys who weren't ready to help us yet.
Yeah.
And that was the drop-off, because the Blazers' top 7 did not play one game together, which means the top 8 did not play together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And the top 6 only played four games together, if I remember right. This is now, again, remember what Chauncey said, remember what Dame said, remember what Jerami said. We're not in trying to find a player or develop a player mode. The rotation will be more veteran laden going into next year. That is not, that statement from Joe Cronin is maybe the single biggest statement in the entire exit interview. This is not what we're hoping to do is, well, if you adjust for the light of the day based on projections, we're not trying to find a player or develop a player mode. The rotation will be more veteran laden.
Well, the other part of this that he's not going to publicly talk about this because he's smart. The whole thing got thrown off because they picked wrong in free agency.
Yep.
I mean, like if you would have said...
And I don't think they picked wrong. I think they picked and it did not work out.
Sure,
I think they made the right,
want to label it.
I think they made the right choice with Gary Payton in the sense of the idea, because let's make sure we kind of go back to this so we know where we stand. This isn't to excuse Joe. This is, let's go through the process. Hartenstein's off the menu. Bamba's off the menu. All the immediate bigs that they had looked at are gone. So what's the next best thing? Get the best defensive player you can in the market. And they came down to one of two guys, Bruce Brown or Gary Payton.
Brown or GP. That's what it feels like it boils down to. Mm-hmm. And they picked GP. And I'm not going to act like I didn't like that move.
We all thought it was a great signing. Move. Yeah.
And you know what? For whatever reasons that are probably going to always be left unknown, it did not work. Well, maybe it'd be a no. But like, I think at the end of the day, I love that he's willing to say this got to be the different thing next year, and it will be. But also, like, that was the huge thing that changed it, was that circumstance failed.
It's a big loss.
Failed bad. And it was, how do you recover from that? So, that was another part of their season, and, hopefully that's maybe one of the learning experiences for him early. He did some good things. He got Jerami here. He drafted Shaedon. I'm not going to act like the dude is 0 for whatever. He missed one. It sucks that it happens, but, you just hope you learn from an experience like that. So.
And he was asked about what he thinks he learns from this season, how it evaluate, and how he said it without saying it. Like, I wish, things I would go back and redo. Mm-hmm. Didn't say names, but I could pick up what he's putting down.
Yes, that's how you have to do it.
This is a complete pivot. I asked about this, and I'm trying to... It's great. I asked Joe Cronin about the amount of players that they signed at the back end of the season and how many young guys and bringing guys into the system like Skylar Mays and Justin Minaya and Nate Williams, who has a non-guaranteed contract going into next year, what it would look like for this team kind of going forward and investing in the G League. And Joe responded with, "It's a goal of ours to get a team in the near future."
Near future sounds, when you say near future to me, I'm like 2 years? 3 years?
I would imagine 2 or 3 months.
That's the very near future.
The very near future
is very fucking encouraging. Sorry, my language, but that is very encouraging.
I said fuck like 6 times already. We're fine.
Well, I know sometimes these people listen to podcasts like, "Oh, there's a kid in the car," and you're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, no, we don't do it on purpose. Sometimes it happens. Brandon,
hey,
you would think the two radio guys. You would think the two radio guys.
The minute we get away from the radio,
that's when we do it.
Yeah,
yes,
free.
I could say fuck.
Oh man.
But no, I would imagine that the Blazers have a G League team going in the next season.
Yes.
I
can't wait to buy season tickets.
I have heard the league is wanting to make a bigger deal out of the G League. Like, I'm not reporting anything. I'm not.
Oh, they should.
But I have a reeling suspicion that it's probably going to happen pretty soon.
Because some 1:00 games for me on a Tuesday. Let's go.
I mean, again, context clues. Look at how many young guys the Blazers have brought. Like, not just like 10-day guys. Look at the profile of guys that they brought in.
I could be the Danny Marang of the G League affiliate. You're working, and I'll be able to.
You think I'm not going to be there?
You're doing a radio show, you idiot.
They're not going to play at noon.
They do games like that all the time.
I guess we'll be doing games on location.
No.
Yeah. No. In fact, you know what? I'm going to call games.
Piss off.
I'm going to call games.
Yeah, you can't call games. You don't work for the affiliate, you a-hole. Let me be G League Sprague.
I'll think about it. But no, I think that there's been, I have heard at the league, I want to say probably, I think I mentioned this on the podcast probably like 2 months ago. I had heard movement on Portland getting a G League team. So I would imagine it's not like it's that hard to spin up. Like the addition of more two-way deals, Portland shopping around or bringing in a bunch of guys that are former current G League players. Like, just kind of looking around going, wonder where this is going. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Joe Cronin on Jeremy Grant. I think the feeling is mutual. Usually at all those things, just family, city, team, coach, all the things the player lines up, it's a lot easier to get things done.
What did Jeremy say again?
5 years.
5 years of solidarity. I love that.
So I wouldn't be too surprised. Somebody says that I couldn't announce games. I'm too vulgar. I have a radio show from noon to 3 where I can't.
You're too emotional.
What do you mean I'm too vulgar? I literally have FCC guidelines that keep me from being vulgar. You're like, I couldn't do it for a basketball game?
Yeah, you're too emotional. You can't do it. No, you couldn't be on the call.
How dare you? How dare you?
And he smokes the layup. How do you smoke that layup? Like, oh, no, dude.
Joe, again, coming full circle back to taking responsibility.
Yeah.
When asked about Chauncey Billups, he said flat out, I don't think I dealt him a great hand this season. I didn't do him any favors with the lack of depth heading into the season.
He's not going anywhere. I mean, he's saying that the organization's not going to pay him. They're going to fire him and pay him off.
But Joe also fell on the sword.
Yeah, he did.
Which
I would imagine Chauncey knew he was probably going to do because, again, they've probably already talked. But publicly to do it makes a guy feel good, doesn't it?
I mean, not bad, right?
You publicly say, like, hey, Sprague makes me less of an asshole. Like, we know that, but, like, I like to hear that publicly.
Yeah, perfectly. That's the whole reason I bring you on. It's just the scaling.
And just to be less of a dick.
Yeah. I asked Joe about potential changes on the bench, not pertaining to Chauncey Billups. If you've paid attention to reporting over the last couple of weeks, Portland coaches have been linked to certain coaching jobs. And one of the places that you can invest, and the Blazers have not invested, whether it's Jody Allen or Paul Allen, is they have not been a team that has a bunch of high-profile assistant coaches. Just not something that's ever been done here. Whether it's like Rick Adelman was not a big coaching hire. Nate McMillan was not a big coaching hire. Terry Stotts was on his last legs. Chauncey Billups, the first-time coach. Mm-hmm. Like, you go down the list For the past, since the Allens have owned the team, there's not an illustrious coaching hire in the group.
Right.
But one thing you can do is perhaps maybe invest in going and getting a Dave Yeager. Or look at the Warriors, like look at their bench. You know, the
Mike D'Antoni.
I don't know if Mike is willing to make that.
Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but he doesn't have a gig yet.
Sure.
And he was sniffing around this one. It'd be really nice.
I would not be against MDA coming and running the offense.
I love it. I would love it.
Come have Dave Yeager run the defense, or assist Roy Rogers and running that. Whatever you want, like,
whatever
but
it is,
bringing in more veteran former head coaches on your bench.
I mean, you obviously haven't accomplished what this team's accomplished, but the ability of what the Warriors have done, right? Yes. They had Brown stay for a long time until he got the job he wanted. They got Atkinson to tell a team, thanks, but no thanks. I'm staying here. Obviously, that's a championship culture. I get it.
Yes.
But it'd be nice to have something like that, an assistant that's been a coach that says, I'm going to give this a couple years and try to help build this thing back up.
So that's something Joe said. It's something we've talked about, adding resources. Professional talker here, adding resources to our process, how we can improve, how we can get these players the best mentorship and the training possible. Okay.
Love to hear it.
Joe ended with this. He was asked about whether or not doing all of this is about appeasing Damian Lillard and his desires and his wants. And he said, I think we have to start taking big steps forward to keep us all appeased. It's time for us to start winning games because that we need to put that pressure on ourselves, not just for Dame, but for all of us. When you look at everything Joe said and really collectively what was said out of exit interviews, what's your takeaway?
I think Joe not only takes responsibility, but I think Joe understands, like, you know, a certain degree with that last quote, especially. I think he's like, this isn't just about losing Dame. This could be my job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they haven't won in a couple years. You want to go back 3 years when they made the playoffs. Like, that was not only incredibly disappointing, but that just wasn't a team that a lot of people were really behind. I mean, really, sans even the West Finals year, man. Like, you know, I know there's this argument. They made the playoffs blank amount of times. It's like, yeah, but they were never really anything.
They never took that next step.
No,
they were fun
because
and plucky.
They were reluctant, and you know, it got them to the playoffs, but largely got you either a first round exit or you benefited from injury.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not beating. I personally don't think you beat the Clippers the first year they beat them.
No, they do not beat that Clippers team. Absolutely.
Even OKC to a certain extent, like, give Dame all the credit in the world for that one. Like, Paul George had 2 messed up shoulders in that series, and
but he still dropped
averaged
40.
I know, he was still killing them, but my point is, like, it's not like this team's been that relevant in a long time. We have to really go back to the Nick Batum, LA West days, and I think that's what that is. It's like, yo, this city like should be demanding that. And I think it's better for franchises when there's other franchises in a city because it puts pressure on you. It's like, where am I spending my money this year? And that's the one benefit that this team doesn't have, right? The Timbers are one thing, but I think Joe's basically saying, I understand that that's a thing and that's real. They come out the gate next year and it's kind of an okay roster, not groundbreaking, and they're just middle of the road. They're going to lose people quick. And so I don't think that's just like an accountability of Dame and his future. I think it's also like, I have to prove I can do this job. And I think he knows he can do it. It's just a matter of going out now, and this is where the work starts. And so I think that's how I kind of view that comment.
I think you're spot on because we've seen, again, this isn't the Jailblazers. I don't think they're going to run away from this as a fan base. But the lethargy could sneak in.
I think it's here for some people, honestly. Not a ton, but I think some people, yeah.
I think for the fickle few, I could see that, where people got a little fat and happy on really how good this franchise has been throughout most of existence, and to be fair, got a little spoiled. Like, you look at the Kings, they didn't make the playoffs for 17 straight years. Like, there are different levels to how things can go, certainly. Right. But yeah, I felt like coming out of that, I heard what I needed to hear. and I heard what I wanted to hear. And I don't think they were just telling us what we wanted to hear. And ultimately, the next couple of months are huge. And this is what you and I have pointed to for 18 months. Of this is the summer. And people be like, oh, you always say that this is it, and this is it, and this. This is the summer Brandon and I have been talking about since everything fell apart. Joe has said, give me 18 months to get through, to get 2 cycles, to get all of my exceptions, to recoup assets, and then judge me. It's that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll have Joe on. What I will probably do is I will open it up for questions. We will almost certainly not do that show open to questions or live, just because it's just too much.
You got to weed out a question in the middle of the thing. Not
no.
Start asking a question. You go, oh, he's not going to answer this question.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that one. But I will do my best to take questions from you guys. For when Joe comes on. He is coming on the podcast here in the next week or so. We're just still going to narrow that down and figure things out. So I will open it up and allow for questions on that. And I will probably do the same for Dame when he comes on here in the next couple of weeks. And then the plan here is that, and Brandon knows how this works, we are currently hoping to sell something on location for the radio show for 1080 The Fan, to do a lottery party. I don't know where it's going to be yet. I'm waiting for our sales team to kind of get back to me on what we're doing. Brandon obviously is on from 6 to 9 in the morning. I'm on from noon to 3. Neither of our shows will be on air during the lottery, which I believe is at 5. But we would be there if we had a party. Yes. So my thought process is that we will have our coverage there that day. I would imagine at least Dusty and my show will be there. Whether or not Isaac and Sue, that's totally up to them. But
they would definitely be there.
I would imagine they would probably be there, and they would be the ones on air during that time period. My thought process is, while they're on air, we will stream and do a live show on location. That's kind of how I'm positing this, so to speak. So. And that, again, the lottery is May 16th. Joe was asked, and I have asked, I'll just tell you, I've asked Joe off the record about who they may or may not send. They do not know yet. So I suggested Brandon Roy. I'll tell you my suggestions. Brandon Roy, Greg Oden, Joe. Can't send Dame. Mike Schmitz, Mr. Draft Guy himself. Who was the other one that we came up with? Can't remember.
I'd like to see Joe do it, to be honest with you.
I think it'd be a good one for Joe.
Yeah, be more at the forefront, have an opportunity to maybe get the one pick, talk about what that means for the franchise in the moment. Like, I think that'd be great.
So, but that's 5 weeks away. Like it's not that far off. Like as much as like it's far away, but it's like bloop, here we go.
I know.
So, in between that, obviously we will have Joe on the show. We will have Dame hopefully on the show before the lottery, and then we will have kind of an a season review, and then an off-season preview, and then we'll kind of go player by player, and then kind of see where things end up from then on. So there's a ton to get into. So like, rate, review, subscribe, help us grow the show. You can find us on social media at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jack Ramsays. Email the show, jackramsays@gmail.com. Brandon, you got anything else?
No, I got Fisher on the radio show tomorrow. Jake Fisher, he wrote an article about coaches. He put Chauncey as one of the blurbs in the Pistons thing. And Scott Brooks. So check him out. He'll be on at 7:30 in the morning. I'm sure, Danny, you guys got your full show with some of the more of this content, the Blazers exit interviews and stuff. So tune into the 1080 The Fan tomorrow starting at 6 and listen all the way through 7 o'clock at night.
Anton actually brings up a good point. Let's send LaMarcus. LaMarcus was the other one because I said LaMarcus would be a great way to bridge that period and retire his number. So, there you go. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate you. Obviously, it's a long episode with the exit interviews. We will at least do one show a week now that I'm back and kind of in things normal with special event stuff for interviews and things of that nature. And I'm trying to get a couple of other players on during the offseason. The interesting thing about technically now that the season's over, I don't have to go through the Blazers. I just go to them directly. Yeah, I can go ask them directly. And it's all about whether or not they want to or not. So hopefully I can get a couple more guys on here in the offseason, and then we'll go from there. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful night. Take care. Talk soon, and we'll catch you later on this week. Bye.